Dear participants, as the president of the International Astronautical Federation, it is my great pleasure to welcome you again to this newly initiative, the IAF GNF Space Conversation Series. IAF is the largest space advocacy body worldwide and engages with more than 400 members from more than 70 countries and all stakeholder groups. Since 1951, the goal of the IAF has been to offer the space community a platform to connect, share ideas, and grow together. After the outstanding success of the International Astronautical Congress in 2020, the cyberspace edition, where we had a record number of 13,600 people registered from 135 countries, we continue offering a rich program free of charge to all the IAF community worldwide. So today we will introduce to you a new committee that was founded at the International Astronautical Congress 2020, the IAF Administrative Committee on Developing Countries and Emerging Communities. And it's actually quite easy to remember, ACDCEC. Yeah? And I would like to give now the floor to Andreas Lindenthal, our new Vice President for the IAF Global Networking Forum, and wish you an interesting hour.
Thank you, Pascal. Thank you very much for this introduction. So, my dear participants and colleagues, I'm really honored that I have the opportunity to introduce for today's Global Networking Forum. So, on behalf of the IAF, I would like to introduce you into the conversation series on the topic Bridging the Space Divide for Developing Countries and Emerging Communities, organized by the IAF Administrative Committee on Developing Countries and Emerging Communities. The conversation series, the Global Network Forum within IAF, has been established in 2012. So it is quite, let's say, a tradition, and it has been proven to be the most efficient platform of the Federation to meet. These days, of course, virtually, but we are connecting many participants around the world, and we are exchanging research results, latest developments, providing an audience with an opportunity to learn and to exchange on latest space-related events. So the IAF Administrative Committee on Developing Countries and Emerging Communities plays a key role in the Federation's activities, actively providing inputs and recommendations to its governing bodies. It is therefore my great pleasure to now give the word to the chair of this committee, Dr. Val Munsami, who will lead and moderate today's session. Dr. Munsami, the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, Andreas and Pascal, and thank you for the kind introduction. I'm just going to put up my slides so you can start seeing that. It's certainly an honor and a privilege to be presenting on this sort of very important topic that we're reflecting on within the IAF. So this topic of this Global Networking Forum is on bridging the space divide for developing countries and emerging communities. And as Pascal had indicated, this is a construct or focus of a new administrative committee that has been established since last year, formally. So I just want to remind the participants, there is a Slido session that is happening on the back end of this conversation. So if you scan on your Slido the barcode on the right-hand side, you will be able to see a set of questions that's being posed. And so there's two sets of questions that we are asking, and we will reflect on the outcome of the survey during the course of this presentation. So I'm going to do a brief introduction, and then I'll introduce you to my panelists, with whom I'll pose a few questions, and then I'll take some questions from the floor as well, and taking into account the set of questions that has been responded to. Pascal had sort of touched on this a little bit, but I thought let me start off in the introduction about the IAF itself. So currently as it stands, we have about 407 member organizations, which comprises of about 30,000 people across those organizations. And those organizations come from 71 countries. Now the IAF itself was established in 1951, so it's just past its 70th year anniversary. So it's a long-standing forum, International Astronautics Forum, and it's definitely the biggest of its kind around. So it's vitally important in terms of the networking opportunities it provides, is to see how we can bridge that divide with respect to the developing countries and emerging communities. Now, if you go and look into the website, you'll see there's a mission for the IAF, and there are 6 core activities that we focus on within the IAF. And that's about promoting cooperation, sharing knowledge. There's various technical sessions where you can share your knowledge and also gain knowledge. And then also advancing international development, because space is an international endeavor in its nature and its characteristics. We also, through the IAF, recognized achievements of individuals, of organizations. And a key focus is obviously on the youth and preparing the workforce. And the last but not the least is about raising awareness globally in terms of the astronautics domain. So that's the essential mission of the IAF in a nutshell. And one of the core aspects that we try to promote within the IAF is what is called the 3G diversity. The 3G stand for geography, so that's to bridge the geographic divide. The gender is a second one, and that's to ensure that there's equal representativity within the IAF itself. And then the generation, and that speaks to the youth and development of the youth, embracing the youth into the various activities that we embark on. So the 3G diversity is a departure point even for this conversation, because essentially what we are trying to do is to bridge that divide with the developing countries and emerging communities. And the reason why we want to do that in terms of bringing the benefits to developing countries and emerging communities, there's 3 aspects that we want to focus on. We understand that developing countries and emerging communities might be facing very specific challenges. And so we want to see and find a way of supporting developing countries and emerging communities in terms of addressing those challenges. We also understand that sometimes the uptake of space-related products and services is not optimal, and it might be because of the lack of understanding of the associated socioeconomic benefits. So through this committee, we want to be able to highlight those socioeconomic benefits and especially target that towards developing countries and emerging communities. And thirdly, we want to also promote the benefits actively, or the active participation of participants from developing countries and emerging communities in the IAF events and activities. One of the telltale signs of especially this aspect is that if you look at the IAF, or the International Astronautics Congress, we've seen, especially from Africa, Asia, and the GRULAC region, that the level of participation is below even 5%. And so we want to see and find a way of bringing those communities and countries into the spotlight and to experience what the IAF has to benefit, but also to bring those benefits to those countries while we're doing that at the same time. So as a committee, we've already started to work. And one of the things we started to look at is, why is the representation of participation from emerging countries and developing countries and emerging communities so low? So we started to look at the barriers and started to frame what those barriers might look like. So there's 4 elements that or streams that we kind of zoned in on. One is the cost benefits in terms of affordability and accrued value. Maybe that's not optimally realized to these communities. Second is there might be a lack of awareness or communications. So we're looking at how do we create that awareness from the IAF perspective, so that these communities are in the know of what the IAF stands for, what the activities look like, and so on. And then thirdly, maybe there's not a full understanding or realization of what the actual space-related benefits are. And I know the colleagues in the panel will speak to the representation and where countries are in terms of establishing space activities. So that will come through in the conversation. And then the fourth one is the actual underrepresentation. Maybe there's something that we need to look at from a process point of view within the IAF in terms of how we ensure the optimum participation from developing countries, emerging communities. So as a committee, we've sort of looked at the challenge itself, and we came up with 7 sort of buckets or categories that we're going to be starting to work with. One, we're going to start looking at sponsorship and memberships to support developing countries and emerging communities. We're going to start driving a marketing and communications that's very focused. We're going to start looking at regional representations within the various regions, Africa, GRULAC, Asia, and so on. And so that we can better have a better coordination mechanism in place. And then fourthly, we want to start to leverage and sweat the partnerships that the IAF has. So for example, with the International Astronautics Academy, the International Institute for Space Law, so we can bring those partnerships and the UN, United Nations as well. And then the fifth one is to find very targeted events at the IAC events or the IAF events and activities, which is geared towards developing countries and emerging communities. So this is the work plan for the emerging countries that I thought I should share with you. So lastly, I just want to introduce my panelists. So we have Camille Brun, who is the Managing Director of Head Aerospace. She's based in France. Ahmed Farouk, he works at Telespazio Vega in Germany. He's from Egypt, but he also chairs the Africa Region Group in the IAF. Ronnie Nazarov, he's the director for the Ecuadorian Civilian Space Agency. He's also the chair of the GRULAC region. Anthony Murford is part of the committee as well. He's the deputy head of the Australian Space Agency, and he'll be reflecting on the Asia Pacific region. And then there's Pilar Zamora, who's the executive director of the Colombian Space Agency. So this is a fairly new agency, so it'll be useful to see how they are finding the IAF experience. So as you can see, the panelists come from all quarters of the world, so it's a very global panel, and so it's also reflective of what we stand for within the IAF. So I'm going to, as part of the next segment of our session, is ask the IAF Secretariat just to present the results of the survey before we kick into the questions to the panelists. Okay, so there were 4 questions that were asked. Sorry, 2 questions with 4 options. Okay, we didn't see the results. We only saw the questions themselves. So, there we go. So assistance is 32%. Okay. Okay. And the second question? Okay. Okay, that's very useful. Thank you so much for sharing that. So I'm going to now turn over to my panelists, and each of them will give a 3-minute introductory remark. I'm going to start with Pilar Zamora. Pilar.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Val, for the invitation. I am the director of the Colombian Space Agency. And for us, it's very important to participate with the IAF and with the IAF programs. I think that to be in one community, in one technical and space community is very important for the development of the countries, because I think that is one big way to know and to understand what's happening in the world with the technical solutions, and to understand and learn all information and all knowledge about how we can do and how we can learn from the countries that have all experience and talent to build the best project for the region and for the world. I think that the IAF is interesting not just for the community. I think that inspire and involve everyone. So I think that maybe we can learn more about the integration for the regions and for the countries, or really promote a project that involve everyone, how say the IAF thematic. Thank you, Val.
Thanks, Pilar. Can I then ask Ahmed for your intervention?
All right, hello everyone. This is Ahmed Farouk. I work for the space operations sector, located at the German Space Operations Center and hired by Telespazio Vega. Also an astronaut scientist candidate for the program POSSUM that is supported by NASA, and as well the chairman of the African Committee at the International Astronautical Federation. Originally Egyptian, lives in Germany for a long time now, and also yeah, been through the ISS and several spacecrafts that I've been working for. For participating in this panel is basically to let all space sectors get together from different nations in the world that we wish from my part, I wish for more African regions to enter into the space sector within the IAF Federation. Thank you very much. Thank you, Val. Val, I think you're muted.
Okay, thank you, Ahmed. Ronnie, from your perspective.
Thank you, Val. My name is Ronnie Nazarov. I'm a Space Operations Director for the Guardian Space Agency and also Chief Scientist. I hold the chair for the regional group for Latin American and Caribbean institutions and nations within the International Astronautical Federation. I completed my cosmonaut training in the Gagarin Cosmonaut Training Center in Moscow in 2007. Well, we have been, the Ecuadorian Space Agency have been part of the International Astronautical Federation since 2008, 12 years now, almost 13 members of the IAF. It was one of the first things we did forming the Ecuadorian Space Agency back in 2007, that we were to, I mean, we recognized that as a newly formed space agency at that time, we had to find a bigger community in order to start networking, to start exchanging ideas, learning about more space technology. Well, now we are a very accomplished agency. We were the first to start exporting our technology to the world, Latin America, to do that. And what I can say, I mean, joining the International Astronautical Federation at that time was very, very, very helpful for us, to the world, allow us to show, to sample and experience technology from other parts. I mean, when you go to an AAC, you have literally thousands of technical papers, non-technical papers. The networking alone, normally you have there. Well, at that time, in 2008, we only had 3,000 people. Now you have 7,000, 8,000 people networking. You start forming relationships, being known. You start knowing more about the world. It has been of great value for us. It had been a great value for us. Lately, we have come a little more, the developing countries will have come a little more, first, a little more, because at that time we were less Now there are more and more and more. But now we're becoming a little more coordinated, united, and I think that we can do great things in the future within the framework of the International Astronautical Federation. Many countries from the region have joined lately, and I continue to believe that through unity, understanding, and why not say it, networking, we can do much more than we have done. Thank you.
Thank you, Ronnie. Can I then turn to Kemi for your intervention?
Yes. Hello. So good afternoon, good morning, and good very evening to everyone. It's my pleasure to be part of the panel today. Shall I can share my screen, right? I have a short few minutes slide presentation to support my presentation. So I'll now share my screen. I guess you can see it, right?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. For me, it's really, you see it still, right? Okay. So for me, it's an honor to be here in this roundtable today. I'm Kemi Brown, Managing Director and Head of Global Business Development of China Head Aerospace. So thank you so much, IAF, to host the event. And I'm very glad to be part of this roundtable discussion. My role today is to represent our company, Chinese Head Aerospace, but actually on behalf of this is an Asia Pacific, let's say, group and a committee side. And while our company has been one of the earliest member from China, being the member of IAF since 2012. And I think some very interesting and very strong measures I want to share today is, I guess some market studies, which is actually carried out by your consult recently, they showed actually 20 years ago, there were 25 countries which have their own satellites, can consider as 25 countries have their space program, let's say. And it was 2020. So what is important, so the first one is 2000, and this one is 2018. Let's say you can have a look on the figures. Actually, right now today, we can consider that more than double of the countries have their own space program or a satellite. It's double the figures, 20 years, double the figures. And this is important to figure out. And here, right now, have a look. Here is the Asian entity company, which are currently member of IAF. And the point here is to share is that today, IAF have actually 407 members. Compared to 20 years ago, the number of members in IAF is only 100. Actually, during 20 years, the number of members in terms of organization is actually multiplied by 4. And if you have a look in terms of the countries, 20 years ago, there are actually 42 countries. And right now, you have 71. So actually, if you have a look on these figures, it is very important in the way is that, well, the number of countries which have their program only double, but if you have a look on the countries joining IAF is triple or 4 times more. So it is a good message to show how the committee is creating this centralized place for the space entity, space country, emerging space country, or developed space country to part of the community through the IAF community. And if I talk about Asia, in Asia, you will see it actually right now represent around 1/3 of the countries being member. And I believe that in the Asian region, we have a very good mix between those developed space program countries like China, Japan, and Korea, and also among others countries, but also in Southeast Asia, we have a lot of entity they do not yet have a space program, or they have a space program. So they're also part of the community. It could be a remote sensing center very downstream. It will also have Australia here as well. So I believe that it's a very good proof, a very good, let's say, evolution to demonstrate how this community is growing in the last 20 years. And of course, I believe that the aim of this committee, we'll talk later in the discussion, but it's also based on this very diversified integrity of the communities. So it is my last slide. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you, Cami. If you can just stop sharing.
Yes, I will just click the stop sharing.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for the intervention.
Thank you.
Anthony, from your side.
Thanks, Val. So Anthony Murphy, Deputy Head of the Australian Space Agency, and really building on the story that Cami just spoke about, this massive transformation of the sector where we're seeing so many new countries and emerging communities being involved in space. And it's because of this massive transformation of the space sector. Technology is being developed quicker, it is cheaper, and access to space and the cost of that is coming down. And as we look across the Asia Pacific region around the world, this is where we're seeing this huge appetite, and the establishment of this committee really provides a strong forum. If I turn to Australia, it is some of these contexts where both this massive transformation that we're seeing, but importantly, that space technologies are improving all of our lives, and space is going to become an important part of many other elements of our economies going forward, whether it be helping agriculture, helping manage disaster management, helping transportation. There are huge opportunities, and one thing we're seeing with this formation of the committee is that we can help tell that story. The other story that we can tell, and Australia has been on this journey with its Australian Space Agency. We were established in July 2018, and we have a very clear purpose to grow and transform our globally respected space industry. And as part of that, we've got a different mandate to many other established space agencies, in that we're very focused on growing the industry itself and actually exploring those commercial opportunities that are coming forward. And it means Australia's journey is that we're one as a government entity, as a partner and facilitator. So working with other space nations to understand those opportunities and plug some of Australia's capabilities, whether it be in robotics and automation, transforming technology from our mining sector, leveraging our location in the Southern Hemisphere to really support that space sector. And we've got some exciting programs, and we're trying new things. For example, partnering with NASA on Moon to Mars, and we're really focusing on integrating our businesses into supply chains. So coming back to the committee, what we find is a great opportunity is that, one, we can share our lessons of what we've seen as we've grown as a new space agency. Secondly, we can learn from others as they explore and go on their journeys. And importantly, we have a forum for those new nations and new communities looking to engage in space activities. And I'm also mindful, if I look at the IAF and the IAC that was held in Adelaide in 2017, that was the forum where the Australian government announced that they would establish an Australian Space Agency. Very thankful, because I now have a job looking after as second in charge of the Space Agency, but it does show the convening power of the IAF to be able to bring these communities together. And with this specific forum, it provides now an opportunity to really extend and help the democratization of space and show really how space can transform many other areas of the economy. So thank you, Val.
Thank you, Anthony, and for the rest of the panelists for your intervention. I'm going to pose two questions, and I'm going to ask at least two of the panelists to respond. But before I ask the first question, I just want to visit the survey results from the first question. And the question was, how do you think the experience within the IAF network could best benefit your institutions in its development? And at the top two was motivating the space case to politicians was 32%, and assisting in policy and strategy formulation was also 32%. So if I go to the first question to the panelists, how do you see the work of the administrative committee benefiting developing countries and emerging communities that are currently implementing space activities, also taking into account the results of the survey question that I just highlighted just now? Can I get any takers? At least two. Ronnie, do you want to come in?
Yeah, thank you, Val. Sorry, the committee was just formed last year, I think, in Washington.
That's
right.
right.
Am I right? Good. And well, it remains to be seen. Certainly, we are committed to matter, to just not sit here and have meetings and do nothing. I'm sure that we will make a difference on this. There are some pretty interesting ideas on how to matter, how to make things work for the developing countries and emerging communities. Certainly, from the GRULAC, I can speak from GRULAC experience because I'm chairman of the GRULAC team, and certainly we have done a difference. We started a developing program, LAT-COSMOS, that right now has many sub-programs running, like the LAT-COSMOS manned human spaceflight space program, that when it realized, it will become the first mission to space crewed only by Latin American citizens. We have a lunar initiative program, actually, in which countries from Latin American region are actually working on lunar technology that will land on the moon on 2021. So that's what I can report on what difference we can do, make for the country. From the GRULAC region, we have a working program for a manned and unmanned spaceflight, in which many countries are participating right now. I mean, we're working. We're just not sitting here and I think that can make the difference, doing things. I'm sure that with this new committee, we will do even more in the Latin American region, in the African region, in the Asian region. And I'm sure of it because I know the people that is working in this committee for a long time. Well, you know, yes, we will do much more things, more actively, faster, as we used to say, Sitius Altius Sport, faster, higher, strong.
Thanks, Ronnie. And I think your intervention was speaking to this particular slide. We was talking about developing technical expertise, which is one of the higher ranking options in terms of what the participants are looking for. Kemi, from your side? Thanks.
Well, thank you so much. I guess, well, yeah, the slide, thank you. Well, I agree, actually. It's not surprising that most of the audience vote for developing technical expertise. I can say yes, of course. Well, again, this is a community where we have, when we attend the IAF section or virtual or previously we have this on-site events, the different section which is very fragmented by different expertise, different space, technological themes. Sometimes you can present a technical paper. So of course, this is the way that when entity want to be part of the network, they will use it most of the time to develop technology expertise, because we learn really a lot with this diversity of participants and the countries. And I believe that here, of course, and the second one is assisting policy. Well, and of course, it's the second one, because I can see the majority of the participants mostly coming from a more, let's say, institutional background. It is within that reason, let's say if this panel is a very good illustration. Half of you come from the institutional side, the government side, and I'm from the private sector. So I think this is, for myself, I believe that from a developing space country point of view, but also from the emerging space country point of view, is very true. And I can say I will add a fifth one here, which is not in this selection, this choice. I believe that we can also have a collaboration, which is maybe missing as a choice here, because for some of, I believe that in some of the technical paper that I participate as in the past, is that we can also have space mission, technical speaking, more also on the international cooperation. So I believe that that could also be one experience that at least myself and our company, Hydrospace, will benefit a lot of international experience within the IAF network. Thank you.
Thank you, Kemi. Can I just ask the Secretary to go to the second results of the second survey while I pose the question? I'm going to ask this question to Anthony and Pilar specifically. So the second question is, how will the committee be able to assist countries and emerging communities who have aspirations for setting up space activities? And so taking into account what you have presented here, while you're doing that, there is a question that is coming from the floor. Is there a way to work with the IAF, even if my country is not a member? And I think this is one of the core aspects we're trying to deal with at the committee level. So maybe Anthony, from your side.
Yeah, thank you, Val. So as the committee turns its mind to how do we help or can help those with space aspirations, I think there's a huge opportunity. I think one of the first things is how do we start showing the value of space, and that investment in space is no longer just the realm of governments. There are commercial opportunities, but importantly, as we think around decision makers, how can we assist in the formulation and providing advice to those nations and communities about the other economic benefits that are there, that as we lift investment in space activities, not only are we creating workforces, we're also could improve agriculture, we're improving transportation, and with the expertise that exists within the IAF, there is a real forum that we can draw on what those lessons are, and those nations with space aspirations can engage and learn what other countries and communities have done to help with their own strategies. And I think some of the other things, as I look at the slide about the role that the IAF can undertake, I've mentioned that Australia hosted the IAC in 1 year, and that bring a huge community into Australia, and it showed the immense value of the space community, the opportunities that were there, and it was a real showcase to show that there were broad opportunities for investment in space. Other things that are coming through is that I know we've been speaking about with the IAF and what can be done. You know, things around how can we provide mentorship, regional champions, so those that have greater ways to engage one-on-one before coming into a larger forum. So I think one of the things we'll think about as a committee is how can we do some of that active outreach, show value, and again, even linking back to the earlier conversation around strategies and policies that nations and communities may wish to consider. And we've got a wealth of experience on that committee across many regions around the world. And I think that value the IAF have is that convening power, the ability to draw lessons from others, and mentorship and guidance as many nations and many new nations will think about space in the future.
Thanks, Anthony. Pilar, while you answer that question, a few years ago, you were not a member of the IAF, and you now are. So maybe if you can reflect on how that has transformed your experience in terms of setting up a new institution in answering this question as well. Pilar.
I think that, yes, it totally changed the point of view about all development and all policy way that Colombia needs to do for create one space industry in my country, for create one framework for to do cooperation with benefit not just for Colombian and for the community, for international community too. I think that to be in the IAF community, it's a real one change in the policy and in how you can to do projects in your country. I think that have many benefits, but I think that yes, have benefits, and in Colombian Space Agency we work with members of the IAF, but we work with non-members in from IAF too. I think that to be in one community is spectacular, and we are so happy to be here. But with all this, we want to inspire too, because we think that the civilization is just one, and how it's just one, we need to work with everybody, and we need to knowledge transfer with all persons, all professionals, all people that have all interest to be here. So I think that have a great value, the IAF, and I think, and I invite to all people, young people, professionals, governments to be here, because I think that it's not just now to be in this community that really have all honor to know, for example, to you, Val, to Ronnie, to Cami. I think that it's more than all this, because it's learn with all best decisions and bad decisions in the different policies and the different projects from other parties that give all best experience. So I think that really we need to work for have more members and for help to know members now.
Thank you, Pilar. Thank you so much for that intervention. And then, Ahmed, I'm just going to ask you this one from the floor, specifically as the chair of the African Regional Group in the IAF. There's a question from Angola. So we have been publishing a lot at the IAF conferences, but what are the procedures to have a country like Angola joining the IAF? So I think that's more an administrative issue. But what contributions can we give to these institutions from the IAF perspective, from an African perspective, Ahmed?
Yeah, well, thank you, Val. For that, cooperation is the main word. When space started by the Cold War, when had Russia on a side and the US on the other side. And then after the Cold War, when it started, there was a big competition between space technologies. Afterwards, they started to collaborate and cooperate together. And this is basically the key word for space sector and space business, because there will not going to be any space project without collaboration, because space is expensive, although it's getting cheaper now with SpaceX and all of that more technology we have right now. But also, it's still expensive, and the technology is the highest technology in the world that we have at the moment. So collaboration, spreading the technology among countries, that is also very needed in the space projects, because there was any space project that I've worked on till now that did not have collaboration between countries. What IAF provide at this matter and this sector is to connect all of those space agencies together within the space industry, within the space conferences, and that would be, I'd say, self-effort. So when you collaborate with somebody, you have to have your own technology or your own effort to collaborate with the other country or the other organization, because the collaboration is also a win-win situation. And that's showed by the ISS right now. When we see the ISS, it's the biggest project till now since Earth, since human beings started. It's a cooperation between all the 5 nations, states, Russia, Japan, Canada, and Europe. So since I'm already in Europe and they have this kind of mentality of let's get united and let's make one together, which is under the European Space Agency, it's the mentality of if you have something on a site and somebody else has something on another site, let's collaborate together and then work it out. So in regarding to the IAF, especially IAF African Regional Group, that's a good spot for the African nations, for the African space industry to meet with the however well-developed nations and also start to get this collaboration together. And as how to be a member of the IAF, that's again, as you said, Val, that's an administrative question where it goes to the IAF directly, and then you just, follow the procedure and be a member, and very welcome to join the African Committee within the IAF. Thank you.
Thank you, Ahmed. It's quite amazing how quickly time progresses when you engaging in these intense conversations and in interesting conversations. So I want to just thank the panelists for your participation, and also to the participants who actually took the time to join us on this important topic. What I also want to indicate is that the administrative committee is hard at work behind the scenes, and there's a lot of activities that we'll be embarking on. So we just urge you to keep a watchful eye in terms of these activities so that you can engage us more effectively as we go along. Our core mandate is to ensure that we serve the developing countries and emerging communities the best way we can from within the IAF. So we look forward to that engaging relationship going forward. I then want to, with those word of thanks, I want to then hand over to Andreas to do the closing remarks. Andreas.
Yeah, thank you, Val. Thank you very much, all of you, for the very important insights. I think what was becoming obvious in the discussion is that in the cooperation between developed countries and emerging countries, we see a huge opportunity to benefit from both sides, that we are exchanging views, learning from each other. And I think that space is a contributor, an accelerator for transformation in the different countries, I think is recognized. And the exchange of information, of knowledge, of experience, which AAF is supporting and is also stimulating with various platforms, I think can be a very useful mean in accelerating and improving that worldwide. So that's pretty impressive also to see the ramp up of countries, of institutions which are recognizing that and therefore joining the various initiatives. So I would like to thank you for these insights, for these contributions. And before saying goodbye, I would like to highlight that and to invite you for the next Global Network Forum, which we have scheduled for December 9th, so 9th of December 2020. And it will be, let's say, this time a long-standing IAF member, Spaceland Africa, which will present Spaceland's first 3D printed Mars habitat. So very interesting, very actual topic. So I would like to wish you all the best until then. Stay safe, take care about yourself, and looking forward to see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you very much.